for a couple of hundred years, people were brought up to understand religious freedom as the first freedom. And they sort of intuitively understood that this meant that it was very important, that everybody needed it, even non-religious people.
The American theologian, Father John Courtney Murray, played an important role in the creation of Dignitatis Humanae, the Declaration on Religious Liberty, and voices such as that of Archbishop Karol Wojtyła, the future John Paul II, played a critical role in giving the document its final shape.
Religious freedom is one of the basic freedoms of the human person, because without religious freedom, the freedom of conscience, all other freedoms are without foundation.
A government that doesn't acknowledge limits on its own power to regulate religious institutions is probably going to come after other institutions as well.
The issue of religious liberty became very real to us in 2012. So it's over 3 years now that this issue has been pursuing us.
The Little Sisters of the Poor are being harassed by the U.S. government for a particular regulation in which the Obama administration deems it necessary that these sisters be compelled to participate in an insurance program that is against the precepts of their faith.
The Little Sisters provide not only the practical care for the elderly, but also there's a spiritual component and the way that they live their lives that adds to not only enrichment of the residents' lives, but to those who are in contact with them, who work with them, who just hear about them.
My dad is a resident at Little Sisters of the Poor in Washington, D.C. When his care became something that I was no longer able to do, I just knew that this is where I wanted my dad to be.
We came to love and respect the sisters and the tremendous sacrifices and work that they do here.
The high point of our life as Little Sisters is to be with the dying. Life is a precious gift that we've each received, and with that is the right to life, pursuit of happiness, liberty to practice your religion.
The government lately has been forcing us more and more to cooperate with its view. But I see that as the flip side of the coin, of the government stopping us from practicing our faith.
Reason divorced from faith, rationality is simply an instrument to manipulate nature and other human beings and reality, which is why we've got to have faith that gives us the ability to see beyond more limited conceptions of reason.
That's more than a theological assertion. It's more than a religious claim of privilege. It's a claim about what a human being is.
Governments that try to squash religious freedom tend to face political fragmentation, political disunity.
Religious freedom means the state is not overarching and in your face at all times. When religious freedom goes away, and there is no transcendent authority, there is only majority will, then the law is the only norm, and the people in power now are always the only power.
The United States is the greatest country in the history of the world precisely because of the exceptional character of its relationship to faith, which permeates every dimension of its evolution and its journey through history.
It seems to me the last thing we'd want to do in America is to move away from the model we've followed for most of our history.
It is an important thing to raise up a new generation of Catholics that understand this part of our heritage, both as Catholics and as Americans.
We can't love God, we can't do our jobs if we don't have religious freedom. And there are Christians around the world who are being denied that right.
We have a situation of difficulty in China, of course. Tragically, we see the killings, the martyrdom of Christians in Iraq and Libya and Egypt, Syria.
And religious freedom is under siege. And the symptom of it is violent torture on the basis of people's religious beliefs.
If we don't have religious liberty, then there's lots of people struggling with these issues who will never see a model to live out these teachings with integrity.
I think the way most ordinary people are beginning to notice it is okay in church, but don't bring it to work, don't run a business according to it, because it's no longer socially acceptable.
We've just had a Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage. It's not only the substance of the decision, but the implications of the decision.
When you're confronted with a tank, it's clear your freedom is being deprived, and you sort of have an identifiable enemy. And I think what we're dealing with now is, in a certain way it's presented, is so benign.
We can disagree over these issues, as we do, but just because your position happens to be motivated by religion is wrong for you to think or allow anyone to say to you, you have to be silent because you're motivated by religion.
The Second Vatican Council gave the world Dignitatis Humanae, a document that explains why religious freedom is important. First, it speaks against government coercion. It makes an even more important point that the right to religious freedom has its foundation in the inherent dignity of each person, and that each person, endowed with reason and free will, is impelled by their nature and bound by a moral obligation to seek the truth, especially the truth about religion. Look at what is happening to Christians in the Middle East, which Pope Francis has called genocide. Look at the nonviolent but increasing exclusion of religion from the public square closer to home. The Holy Father's words, like those of his predecessors, continue to be shaped by Dignitatis Humanae. It is a document of hope.
The dignity of the human person. That's what religious freedom is. Every human being has dignity because he or she is created in the image and likeness of God.
At the very time when you need faith and the language of faith, now you're going to criminalize the one thing that keep people from engaging in nihilistic forms of political violence like we see around the world?
And in particular, the people who will lose the most if our institutions close, if our schools can't hire and teach in accordance with this, are already vulnerable people.
We have to bring not just optimism, but genuine Christian hope.
Countries that have religious freedom are also more likely to have freedom of the press, freedom for women, free speech, etc. They travel together because all of them are about whether truth matters at all.
If anything, today you need more faith to impart to a generation of young people who've not known faith and hope, the faith to believe that things can be better without violence.
If we cherish it, protect it, know about it, and proclaim it, it will triumph.